In this video, we're going to talk about the pre-flight report and some of the information that you're going to see there and what that information means. We're going to start with an example that's in pretty good shape. Brian, you want to talk through this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to go through this. So if we're taking a look at this pre-flight, we see this is going to be a 1.85 aspect, and it's got two audio channels in it. So that's the type of DCP, the shape of the DCP that's going to get created. And we can go through and take a look at the image. So thank you. Looking at this image right now, I don't see any black around the image. So what this means is the source, if we originally looked at the source on this, is a perfect 185. And we can look at the source up in this screen to see what the actual video physically was encoded. Let's see. Jeanette's going to have to scroll here a little bit to where it'll show the size, but it'll show that as 1998 by 1080 as the appropriate size for 185. The other thing to look at in this pre-flight is, let's go take a look at the audio loudness on this particular source. And looking at the audio loudness, negative 24. EBU standards prefer to be right around negative 23, so this is actually slightly quieter. So that makes this really good. The only time we really want to be concerned about loudness is when it gets above negative 17, negative 15. Again, there are no standards in the theatrical industry. If you want to do something really loud, you're allowed to, but I strongly suggest that you work with an audio engineer, an audio designer, to make sure it's within something your audience will like. So taking a look at this pre-flight, so this one is going to be the DCP that's going to get generated is a 185 again. And let's go ahead and take a look at the source image. Interesting. So what this image is, you'll notice this has letterboxing, the black on the top and the bottom. And the reason that's happening is the number one error that always happens in editorial when you're working with 2.39 aspect is that the editors like to work in a screen size of 1920 by 1080, which matches their displays, and then they forget that they need to convert that back into full 2K 2.39 aspect for export. So that's what this is going to end up is this should have been exported as 239 as aspect with a dimension of 2048 by 858. But the person who did this exported as 1920 by 1080, which is high definition, which is one of the standard templates in an editor. So this is a classic mistake. And all they need to do is go back and re-export as full 2.39 2K aspect, and then submit it for DCP encoding. Will be fine. Looking also at the audio loudness looks fine, negative 21 dB. But beyond that, fix the aspect on the initial source, and this will be a great DCP. So here's another example, and this one is going to be generated as a 2.39 aspect DCP, which is what our previous DCP should have been. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is an interesting mistake that the editor made in outputting this. What actually happened here is, and you'll see pillars on the left and the right. If we were doing a high definition 1.77 aspect, that would be okay to have pillars. But in this case, this is a 239 with pillars. And all this means is the person was actually working on either a high def 177 or a 185, and they simply exported it as full 2K 2.39, which ends up with the extra black on the left. All right, so let's take a look at this pre-flight. This pre-flight, the DCP is going to be a 1.85. Just as a little reference out there, there are only two aspects at a theater. You either get 1.85 or you get 2.39. So taking a look at this content was originally high definition. This is the most common input into our systems today. So most people are doing the work in 1920 by 1080 or the 4K equivalent to that. And the result, when you put this into a 1.85, you're going to end up with pillars. You're going to end up with a pillar on the left side and you're going to end up with a pillar. I can get to it here. Pillar here on the right, and you can see it. So this is a perfectly acceptable type of input. 1.77 content, high definition, will into a 1.85 map will result with pillars. And let's go take a look at the audio. So audio loudness on this one happens to be negative 11. That's actually really loud. The preference is to keep it around negative 23 for the EBU standards. However, as I said, in the theatrical world, there are no requirements for what audio needs to be, but you should work with an audio design engineer to make sure this is something that would be considered acceptable.
Long story short, check your pre-flight report before you make your payment and create your DCP.